Episode 1. As I've always thought of myself as someone with integrity. You know, the type of person who'd do the right thing no matter what. At least I used to think so, until this secret landed in my lap. I've worked at corporate for 6 years now. It's your typical corporate office with the hum of printers, the ping of emails, and the scent of burnt coffee in the air. I'm a project manager, efficient, reliable, and perfectly ordinary. At least that's how I thought people saw me. It all started 2 months ago when I was staying late one night working on a client proposal. The office was empty except for me and Paul, the senior manager in the corner office. You know the type. Slicked back hair, tailored suit, always on his phone like he's got some huge deal about to drop. Anyway, I went to grab something from the supply room, and on my way back, I noticed his door was slightly ajar. I wasn't eavesdropping, I swear. But you know how it is. Voices carry when the office is quiet. At first, I didn't understand what I was hearing. I thought he was on the phone with his wife, or maybe talking about a vacation. But then I heard him say something about offshore accounts and numbers not adding up. My stomach flipped. I stood there frozen, barely breathing, as I realized what he was talking about. Company money, our company's money, was being funneled somewhere it shouldn't be. I backed away as quietly as I could, my heart pounding. Did I just hear what I thought I heard? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I misunderstood. But deep down, I knew what I'd heard. The question was, what now? For weeks, I avoided Paul like the plague. Every time I saw him in a meeting or by the coffee machine, I felt sick to my stomach. I knew I should do something, but what? Report him? Blow up his entire career? But what if I was wrong? What if this was just a misunderstanding? And then there was the other side of it. What if I was right? I couldn't help but think about the consequences. Paul is respected around here. If I say something, they'll ask questions. They'll ask how I knew, why I was snooping around, and whether I'm trustworthy. It could ruin me as much as him. Then there's Jenna, my colleague and closest friend at work. She's up for a promotion, and if I expose this, the company could go under, or at least take a massive hit. What would that mean for her? For all of us? The weight of the secret is unbearable. Sometimes I think it would be easier if I could just forget what I heard. Move on, keep my head down, and pretend none of this ever happened. After all, it's not my mess. But then again, isn't it my responsibility to do the right thing? I've been standing on this tightrope for weeks now, torn between the urge to protect myself and the gnawing feeling that the truth deserves to come out. I guess that's what this all comes down to. Is this secret worth keeping quiet about? Or is it worth telling? And if I tell, what will it cost me? Episode 2. Working in HR, you hear things. It comes with the job. People trust you with their stories, their complaints, their confessions. But nothing could have prepared me for the secret that fell into my lap one Thursday afternoon. I was just finishing my lunch, cold leftovers at my desk as usual, when I got a ping on my computer. It was an anonymous email, something we rarely get but are obligated to review. I clicked it without much thought, expecting another vague complaint about break room etiquette or too many meetings. The subject line simply read, "You should know what's going on with Emma Bennett." Emma Bennett. The name didn't immediately ring a bell, but as I read further, a chill crept up my spine. I can't tell you who I am, but what I'm about to say is something you need to investigate. Emma is not who she says she is. Check her records. Look into her background and you'll see what I mean. There's a reason she's been moving so fast up the ladder. I read it twice, my pulse quickening. Emma was the newest hire in the marketing department, a rising star. I'd met her during her onboarding process a few months back, and she seemed sharp, quick-witted, ambitious, and one of those people who naturally commanded a room. Since then, she'd made a real impression on the execs, and was already leading projects that would typically take years to earn. I'd chalked it up to her talent and drive. But now? This email planted a seed of doubt. I told myself it was probably a prank, or someone in the office feeling jealous of her success. That happens more often than you'd think. Still, something nagged at me. I was trained to listen to that gut feeling, and so I did. I started digging. What I found was odd. Emma's file was immaculate, too immaculate. Her employment history was pristine, her references glowing. But as I kept looking, I noticed gaps. Small ones, but they were there. Dates that didn't quite match up. Jobs that overlapped when they shouldn't have. I ran a basic background check again, something we do for all employees, and this time I found something that made my blood run cold. Emma Bennett didn't exist. At least not in the way we thought. The social security number on file belonged to someone else. An Emma Bennett, yes, but not our Emma. The woman sitting in that corner office taking meetings with CEOs and leading high-profile marketing campaigns? She was using a stolen identity. I sat back in my chair, stunned. How had she gotten this far? How had no one noticed? And what was she really after? The next few days were a blur of whispered conversations and discreet meetings. I couldn't go straight to the execs without more proof. They were already half in love with her, and I didn't want to come off like some conspiracy theorist. But as I dug deeper, more discrepancies appeared. Her LinkedIn profile was a patchwork of vague titles and buzzwords. The companies she'd supposedly worked for had no record of her. Every lead I followed hit a dead end. I was sitting on a time bomb, and I knew it. But the more I thought about it, the more I questioned whether I should blow it up. Emma had accomplished a lot since she got here. She'd boosted revenue, attracted new clients, and honestly, most of the team loved her. Exposing her now would cause chaos, and who knows what else we'd uncover. But there was a deeper question gnawing at me. What was her end game? Why go through all this trouble? And how far was she willing to go to keep her secret? I went to see Emma, pretending it was a routine check-in. As I sat across from her in her stylish, glass-walled office, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. She smiled at me, her eyes sharp and calculating, as if she knew exactly what I'd found out. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She wasn't just hiding her past. She was playing a long game, and I had no idea what the final move would be. Now, every time I pass her in the hallway, my stomach knots up. I still haven't told anyone. I'm sitting on this secret, knowing that one day it's all going to come crashing down. The question is, will I be the one to pull the trigger? Or will Emma get to me first? It started innocently enough. A casual chat in the break room with one of the senior HR managers, Michelle. She's been with the company for over a decade, knows the ins and outs of every policy, every unwritten rule. And that's exactly how I stumbled across it. The unwritten rule. I've been with Aldertech for about 2 years, and like most of my colleagues, I've noticed the high turnover rate. It's something people joke about in hushed tones, but no one really talks about openly. The long hours, the constant pressure to hit targets, the overtime that's expected but never explicitly asked for, it wears people down. Episode 4. It started innocently enough. A casual chat in the break room with one of the senior HR managers, Michelle. She's been with the company for over a decade, knows the ins and outs of every policy, every unwritten rule. And that's exactly how I stumbled across it. The unwritten rule. I've been with Aldertech for about 2 years, and like most of my colleagues, I've noticed the high turnover rate. It's something people joke about in hushed tones, but no one really talks about openly. The long hours, the constant pressure to hit targets, the overtime that's expected but never explicitly asked for. It wears people down. One afternoon, I found myself venting to Michelle about the workload, as I often did with the HR team. Everyone's burning out, I said, but we're all too scared to say anything. It's like they push us until we can't take it anymore, and then we just disappear. She nodded, sipping her coffee, but something about her expression made me pause. There was a flicker of recognition, like she knew something more. I pressed a little harder. You must have seen it all in your time here. Does it ever get better? Michelle hesitated, then glanced around to make sure no one else was within earshot. "You didn't hear this from me," she said in a low voice. "But the burnout isn't accidental." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard her right. "What do you mean?" "There's a reason you see so many people come and go, especially in the mid-level roles. It's not just bad management or high expectations." She leaned in closer, lowering her voice even more. "It's part of the plan. Aldertech runs on a model where they push employees to their limit, knowing full well that a certain percentage will quit. It keeps costs down. They don't have to pay senior salaries or deal with raises and promotions for people who stay too long." I stared at her, stunned. "That can't be right. They can't just let people burn out on purpose." Michelle sighed, clearly torn between speaking up and protecting the company she'd worked for so long. "It's not written anywhere, obviously. But the higher-ups know the game. They bring in fresh blood, work them hard, and when they're used up, they replace them. It's cheaper than investing in long-term employees." My mind was spinning. It explained so much. The constant influx of new hires, the unrealistic project deadlines, the unspoken expectation that you had to be on at all times. I'd always thought it was just corporate culture, but now it felt more like a trap. "What about HR?" I asked, feeling a tinge of desperation. "Isn't it your job to protect us from that kind of thing?" She looked at me sadly. "HR isn't here to protect you. It's here to protect the company. If anyone complains, they'll just chalk it up to personal performance issues or work-life balance problems. But trust me, it's part of the design." I didn't know what to say. I felt betrayed, angry even, that a place I'd invested so much in, my time, my energy, could treat its people like disposable parts. But at the same time, I understood the dilemma. In a world where profits and growth are the bottom line, human costs often take a backseat. Over the next few weeks, I saw things differently. The tired faces in the morning meetings, the whispered complaints over coffee, the resignation emails that popped up more frequently than they should have. The truth was staring me in the face, and I couldn't unsee it. Now the question is, do I blow the whistle? Speak out about the toxic culture and risk losing everything I've built here? Or do I keep my head down, stay quiet, and protect my job, knowing full well that this cycle of burnout will just keep turning? It's a secret that feels too big to keep, but also too dangerous to expose. Every day I wrestle with it, unsure if I'm doing the right thing by staying silent, or if I'm just letting another wave of employees crash and burn like the ones before me.